When you realize that someone has stopped treating you the way they used to, you feel a void inside. Are you afraid of losing that person, or have you already lost them? The harsh reality is that the more you try, the more you fall out of favor. But there is a way to turn this around, and not just in relationships, but in every aspect of your life. If you never want to experience this feeling again, watch this video until the end. Now, let's take a closer look at why people underestimate you and how you can turn it around. Because here's a big mistake that everyone makes, and if you make this mistake, all your efforts will be in vain. The real problem: why people stop caring about you. How does it feel when someone who once looked forward to seeing you, who listened to you with genuine interest, who was excited just to be around you, suddenly starts ignoring you? When someone who used to reply instantly now takes hours, even days, to respond? When someone who once prioritized you now seems more interested in something or someone else? Deep down, you know something has shifted. But the real question is, why? The answer lies in psychology. There's a concept called hedonic adaptation. People naturally get used to good things over time, and what once felt exciting starts to feel normal, even mundane. Think about when you get a brand new phone. At first you're thrilled. You admire it, explore every feature, and use it with excitement. But after a few weeks, that phone becomes just another object. It's no longer special. It's just part of your daily routine. The same principle applies to relationships. If you consistently give someone the same level of attention, if you always offer unconditional care and love, at some point, it stops feeling special. They don't notice your efforts anymore because they assume you'll always be there. What once made them happy, seeing your name pop up on their phone, spending time with you, starts to feel like just another everyday thing. Even worse, people tend to devalue things they don't have to work for. So, if you're always the one initiating conversations, always putting in the effort, always making things happen, you may unknowingly be lowering your own worth in their eyes. At a certain point, they start to take your presence for granted. They assume that no matter what they do or don't do, you'll still be there. And because of that, they stop feeling the need to match your effort. And this is where most people make their biggest mistake. They try even harder. Instead of stepping back, they send more messages. They give even more. They chase in an attempt to regain that lost connection. But ironically, the harder you try, the more they pull away. Because the more effort you put in, the more predictable and less valuable you become in their mind. What you need to do to make them realize your true worth. If you want someone to truly value you, the first thing you need to do is step back. This doesn't mean ignoring them or playing mind games. It's not about punishment, it's about awareness. You need to take away the sense of certainty that makes them take you for granted. Because when people believe something will always be there, they don't question it. But the moment they feel its absence, they start to notice what they've lost. You can see this principle in action in everyday life. Think about a beautiful view in a city where you've lived for years. The first time you saw it, you probably admired it. But over time, your eyes adjusted, and eventually, you started passing by without even noticing it. Until one day, the landscape changes, and suddenly you realize what was there all along. The same thing happens in relationships. When someone knows you're always available, they stop recognizing your value. But when you withdraw, they feel that void. And without even realizing it, they start questioning why things feel different. So, if you're always the first one to text, don't do it for a while. If you're always the one making plans, take a step back. If you're constantly prioritizing them, shift your focus to your own life. Because when something becomes too accessible, it stops feeling special. At first, they might not even notice, but over time, they'll feel the shift. And that's when awareness kicks in. Their mind will start racing with questions. Why aren't they texting me like before? Are they losing interest in me? Did something happen? These thoughts create a gap in their mind, a space of uncertainty, and that space makes them start valuing you again. But here's the critical part. You don't want them to realize it too late. If stepping back makes them feel like they've lost you completely, they may perceive it as indifference, and instead of valuing you more, they might move on entirely. That's why stepping back doesn't mean disappearing. It means strategically reducing your presence. You're not cutting them off. You're shifting the dynamic so that they start realizing how important you are without even knowing it. The scarcity effect. Why your value increases when you withdraw. There is a powerful principle in human psychology known as the scarcity effect. People naturally place a higher value on things that are rare or difficult to obtain. This is exactly why luxury brands are so desirable. If an expensive handbag is available in every store, you wouldn't go out of your way to buy it. But if it's a limited edition, suddenly it becomes much more appealing. Why? Because it's harder to get. The same principle applies to human relationships. If you're always available, always responding instantly, always showing interest, you become predictable. And what's predictable becomes ordinary. But the moment you pull back, the other person starts to feel uneasy. They feel the fear of losing you, because suddenly you are no longer guaranteed. And that is the moment when their perception of you shifts. One of the strongest proofs of this principle is how people tend to see things they've lost as more valuable. Most people don't realize how much they need something until it's gone. The same is true in relationships. When you're always available, the other person doesn't stop to question your presence. But the moment you're not as accessible as before, they suddenly begin to see you differently. This is because the human brain is wired to value something more when it becomes scarce. Have you ever noticed that when you gave too much attention to someone and later withdrew, they suddenly came back to you? That's because you were no longer a guaranteed resource. When the human brain believes something will always be there, it stops appreciating it. But when that thing starts becoming less accessible, it triggers a sense of panic. This is exactly where the scarcity effect comes into play. Someone who once assumed they could keep you in their life without effort now feels the need to fight for your attention. And what happens? The person who barely made an effort before suddenly starts working harder to win you back. You can observe this phenomenon outside of relationships too. Take the workplace as an example. An employee who always takes on extra responsibilities eventually becomes invisible. Their efforts are expected, not appreciated. But the moment they stop going the extra mile, they become noticeable again. Employers only start recognizing their value when they feel like they're losing it. This is exactly why understanding the scarcity effect and applying it correctly can give you a huge advantage, not just in personal relationships, but also in your professional life. If you want someone to value you more, stop making yourself overly accessible, because people always place a higher value on things that feel scarce. And when you do this, something fascinating happens. The other person starts questioning your presence. They begin to wonder, why aren't they always available anymore? Did I take them for granted? What if I lose them? And just like that, their entire perception of you changes. How to apply it? If you want to implement this in your life, there are a few key things you need to pay attention to. First, stop always being the one to take the first step. If you're the one who always calls, texts, or makes plans, take a break from that. If you want people to value you, you need to show them that you value yourself first. Second, don't be constantly available. If you don't want people to take you for granted, make it clear that your time is valuable. Instead of always being accessible, invest in yourself. Spend time on your interests, hobbies, and personal growth. Because the truth is, someone who is genuinely happy with themselves and lives their own life naturally becomes more attractive. Lastly, observe how they respond. If they continue to reach out to you even after you step back, that's a sign that they genuinely care about you. But if they make no effort, then you've been wasting your energy on someone who doesn't actually value you in the first place. Take back control. Stop chasing after someone's attention. You are already valuable. You don't need validation from others to prove your worth. Shift your focus to self-discovery. Invest your energy in those who genuinely appreciate you. And most importantly, make yourself the priority in your own life. When you do this, not just your relationships, but your entire life will start to transform. Now, let me ask you, have you ever experienced this? Have you ever stepped back and observed what happened? Share your thoughts in the comments, because you are not alone. Type, "I'm taking back control now too," in the comments. And let's go through this process together. If this video helped you, don't forget to like it and send it to someone who might need to hear this today. And if you want to keep growing, subscribe to Mindful Sphere and turn on notifications. In the next video, I'll be sharing even more insights to help you build confidence, emotional strength, and self-worth. If you're ready to deepen your spiritual awareness and make real changes in your life, you're in the right place. Follow us because your journey of self-discovery is just beginning. See you in the next video.